Hello all. In this session, we discuss a case study regarding the nuclear disaster. So we know that uh, uh, throughout the world, there are a lot of nuclear reactors. Without nuclear reactors, we can't manage energy requirement. In India also, uh, there is a proposal that to build a many number of nuclear reactors. So we need more energy to run our industry, to run our sophisticated life, and to make India as a developed country. So in this scenario, there is also an opposite view that the nuclear reactors will lead to some devastating effect. If anything fails in the nuclear reactor, which may create a condition that cannot be reversible, which affects the human, material, and the ecosystems. The history proves this statement, the Chernobyl nuclear disaster. Chernobyl is a place in Ukraine. Now it is in Ukraine. Before, when the accident was happened, it is in Russia, that is USSR. The Chernobyl disaster is a nuclear accident that occurred at Chernobyl nuclear power plant in 1986. A nuclear meltdown is one of the reactors caused a fire that sent a plume of radioactive fallout that eventually spread all over the Europe. The Chernobyl nuclear reactor plant, built at the banks of Pripyat River of Ukraine, it had 4 reactors capable of producing 1,000 megawatts of electrical power. On the evening of April 25, 1986, a group of engineers planned an electrical engineering experiment in the 4th reactor of this complex. With their little knowledge on the nuclear physics, they thought of experimenting how long the turbine would spin and supply a power to the main circulating pumps, following a loss of main electrical power supply. Then, how this incident leads to this disaster? What led to this disaster? The reactor unit number 4 was to be shut down for routine maintenance on 25th April 1986. But it was decided to take advantage of this shutdown to determine whether, in the event of a loss of station power, the slowing turbine would provide enough electrical power to operate the main core cooling water circulating pumps until the diesel emergency power supply becomes an operative one. So the aim of the test was to determine whether the cooling of the core would continue in the event of a loss of power. So due to this misconception that this experiment belongs to the non-nuclear part of the power plant, it was carried out without a proper exchange of information between the testing department and the safety department. So hence, the test started with inadequate safety precautions, and the operating personnel were not alerted to the nuclear safety implications of the electrical test and its potential danger. So at 1:32:23 hours on April 26, 1946, the engineers continued with their experiment and shut down the turbine engine to set its inertial spinning would power the reactor water pumps. So they was trying for that. So in fact, it did not adequately power the water pumps. And without the cooling water, the power level in the reactor got surged. As the channel pipes began to rupture, more steam generation occurred as a result of depressurization of the reactor cooling circuit. So as a result, when the cooling fails, and as expected, the power fails, the 2 explosions were reported. The first one was the initial steam explosion, Eventually, after 2 to 3 seconds, a second explosion took place, which could be a possible form, the buildup of hydrogen due to zirconium steam reactors. So, all the materials such as fuel, moderator, structural materials was ejected out, starting a number of fires, and the destroyed core was exposed to the atmosphere. The core contained the nuclear active reactive material. So when this exposed to the atmosphere, the explosion and the ensuing fire, more than 50 tons of radioactive materials were released into the atmosphere where it was carried by the air. So usually when any pollution happens, that pollution will not only affect the core place, it can be carried by water, it can be carried by the direction of along the direction of wind, or it can be taken by the humans, and many ways it can spread. The same way, radioactive things was carried by the air current, and this was 400 times to the amount of radioactive material released at the time of Hiroshima bombing. We know that Hiroshima bombing, it is an open bomb where it created a huge disaster. But here, it is assumed that the plant was in a safety condition. But suddenly it happens. The effects was more than the Hiroshima. So usually when the disaster happens, we can't imagine the effects faced by the people, the scientists, and the country. And not only that country, this kind of disaster will spread over the other regions and it usually affects the entire continent. So the Chernobyl nuclear power plant disaster in Ukraine is the only accident in the history of commercial nuclear power plant to cause fatalities from radiation. So there were many fatal effects due to the radiation released. Two workers had died. One immediately got burned to ashes after the accident, while the other was declared dead at the hospital within a few hours of admission. 28 emergency workers and staff died within 4 months of the accident due to the thermal burns and the radiation effects on their bodies. The fatal effects of the disaster was almost the accident created 7,000 cases of thyroid cancer due to this radiation exposure. The acute radiation syndrome was diagnosed in 237 people who were on site and involving in the cleaning up process. The land, air, and groundwater were all contaminated to a great extent. So the direct, indirect exposure to the radiation lead to many several health problems such as Down syndrome, chromosomal aberrations, mutations, leukemia, thyroid cancer, cognitive malfunctions that not only affected the current generation, it also continued for several generations through their genetical transfers. So we can't imagine the effect. Even if we can imagine the effect happen at the moment, but the imagination is apart from this because future generation will also suffer due to this. So, as I said in the introduction, there were mixed arguments favor of the nuclear reactor and against the nuclear reactor. So, safety precautions should be ensured. Whatever the things which we are doing related to this nuclear, which stops these kind of disasters. Thank you.